Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Drawn Into Books. This is a new feature hosted by Zoom Into Books, and your host for Drawn Into Books is Matt Dragovitz. Matt is an award-winning, talented author and illustrator. Matt, take it away.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Kathy. It's really great to be here. I am very excited about both hosting and producing the Drawn Into Books series. Now, for our audience, Drawn Into Books is a program that will cover various elements related to children's book publishing. We will be covering subjects related to character development, story development, character design, software use, color theory. If it's related to children's publishing, we'll be covering it in time. Our goal is to produce at least one of these a month and sometimes twice a month, depending on interest and my availability. For those of you who might not be familiar with my work, I would suggest that you check out Zach's Quest, A Tale for Christmas, which is available as a picture book, a chapter book, and a coloring and activity book. Now, I will disclose that the illustrations in the book were done by my great friend Jeffrey Varab, who is a veteran Disney artist, and the color work was done by Irma Torre, who is a veteran Disney colorist. They took my initial designs and concepts and just gave it that total Disney flair and life, and I am very grateful to them for that. I am working on my own additional series, but I'll cover that in future episodes. For right now, I'd really like to just dive in to the episode that we have right now. And again, this one will cover character design. In particular, this lesson will be beneficial to those of you who are looking to create multiple versions of the same character or various versions of a characters that all fall kind of within the same family. It will all make a little bit more sense as I dive in. So let's get to it. Okay, so who wants to build a snowman? Sorry, had to ask. I thought using a snowman for our first lesson would be really fun since snowmen have only a few specific character attributes that really give them their personality. And since this was something that I put together for the children's coloring and activity book, I had easy access and it's mine, so I can have fun with it. So when you're designing a character, one of the things you want to think about is, outside of the personality of your character, is what physical attributes make your character unique. Is it the clothing they wear? Is it their stature, how tall or short they are? Is it how strong they are? Is it the type of skin color or ethnicity that really gives you a little insight into the person without even really having met them? I hate to say it, but everybody kind of gets an impression from somebody visually before they even get to know them. So when you're designing a character, you have to realize that if you put artwork in a children's picture book right on the cover, a parent or a child is really going to get a feel right out the gate what that character is like or what you're trying to convey through that character. And as an exercise for designing a character, because, you can sit down and you can draw a character and everybody wants to fall in love with the first character they draw. But that's a really bad idea because you're only limiting your options. If you go and draw a couple more variations of that character, it's going to do one of two things. It's going to give you an option for another character that you say, wow, I really like that second drawing or that fourth drawing or that 12th drawing even more. But even if you end up liking the first drawing that you did the most, it just kind of reassures you that, wow, that was a good design and I really hit the ball out of the park on the very first go. But you don't ever want to just draw your character once and say, okay, this is him or this is her. You really want to explore. So again, using a snowman I thought would be a really fun way to do that. So as you can see in the coloring book, what we have here, I've created a outline for the snowman, just a shell, the head, torso, and the body. As you can see, let's grab a pen so I can write as we're going. I'll use my clean sketch as my pencil. And so that as I'm drawing, you can say, okay, there's our body. All right, that's a template. What I recommended for the coloring book is that kids kind of photocopy that so that they can just keep drawing and coming up with different combinations. So when you're doing your character, and I do want to also say this is just one method of coming up with variations of a design. You can just sit there and draw till you're blue in the face. Just keep drawing and drawing and drawing and come up with different things. But sometimes it's fun to do a sort of little mix and match with the characters to really explore how some simple little change like a hat or a nose or a smirk will drastically change the appearance of the character in full. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is I'm using a program called Procreate on the iPad. It's a very fun and easy program to use. And what I'm going to do as an example is I'm just going to go around and lasso some of these attributes for a character. So let's start off. I like to be silly, so I'm going to just go through here and quickly lasso this little kind of jester cap here. Within Procreate, you can do a neat thing. Now, I could either take this and I can just move it over, but I like to do what's called a non-destructive workflow, which means that you keep all the elements preserved and then you make copies of them. So what I'm going to do here is, since it's selected in Procreate, you can just drag down on your screen with 3 fingers. It'll bring up another submenu. You can just copy. Then I'm going to drag the 3 fingers again, and I'm going to hit paste. Now, if you look in my menu, I have that pasted image, okay? If you see me take it, I can now move it, and I can turn it off and on, okay? So now that I know that I'm using my jester cap, I'm just going to use my selection tool. I'm going to scale it up. I'm going to get it to a point where it's kind of a nice alignment. Maybe I'll even rotate it on his head a little bit, kind of off to the side, like he's a little sloppy, right? All right, so there we go. We got a jester cap. Now what I would like to do is, before I get too far, is since I'm putting this over the body here and I have my snowman template, I'm going to duplicate this. Because you always want to have a copy of something once you start getting in there and erasing things. And I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to flatten it. So this layer now is my whole body, right? And I have a backup right here. So once I start messing around with this one, I know I have another clean copy waiting for me. So the first thing I'm going to do is, since I have this snowman with his hat, you can see the hat is over the head, but now we have the lines of the head behind it, which are causing it to not look right. It doesn't give it three dimensions. So I'm just going to take my eraser and I'm going to erase those little lines right there. Okay? Now the hat looks like it should be there. Okay? So, since I got a jester cap, the next thing I need to decide is what kind of expressive eyes do I want to use. Now, I would always recommend doing the eyes early on because it may sound cliche, but the eyes are the gateway to the soul. So once you've expressed the eyes, the other elements will work more harmoniously with them. So I have to decide now, is my snowman a boy or a girl? For this one, I'm going to go with a boy. Everybody can do what they want, but for this example, I'm just going to use a boy real quick. Since I have a jester cap, I'm going to make sure I have my layer selected that has the eyes. And I'm going to go back to my lasso. And I'm going to select eyes that I think work with the jester cap. I kind of like these eyes right here. So we're just going to select our lasso. We're going to take those eyes. We're going to drag 3 fingers, copy. We're going to drag the 3 fingers again, and paste. Now, when I go to select, it has those eyes. Now, here's something I want you to think about as we're looking at these eyes. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. When we have these eyes, we can position them however we want. And again, we can rotate them. I'm going to say maybe I'm going to have his head a little to the side. I like things off axis a little bit. I like to break symmetry, which is a good element of design in general. But I have this snowman, and now if I look at those eyes, I say, oh, okay, those are eyes. But I don't like the size of them. You know, I just don't think that they fit proportionally for the head, so I'm going to make them bigger, okay? And I can even, if I want, make those eyebrows go over the head, or I can keep them right here. I'm going to keep them right here for this one, okay? I kind of like that. I think that's a little bit more expressive. It's kind of a silly face, right? Now, let's move on to the nose. What kind of nose does this guy have? Well, we got the jester cap. We got the kind of expressive eyes. I'm going to go something with a little bit of personality. And let's make sure we have our proper layer selected again down here. Grab our lasso. And for this guy, I want to do a longer nose. and I want it to be kind of crinkly. All right, I'm going to select that. I'm going to 3-finger. I'm going to be repetitive with this, but it's going to drum it into your heads. Copy, paste, and now I have that nose. Now, obviously, if I put this nose going this way, that doesn't look right. It doesn't work with the tilt of the head. It doesn't work with the eye line. It just doesn't work. So in Procreate, when you have your arrow and you have your object selected, you can see the menu right down at the bottom of the screen. And all I'm going to do is hit flip horizontal. Okay? So now I know it's going more in the direction I like. And maybe we could change the angle if we want. You know, we can decide how far we want to nestle that nose in. I'm looking at that and, okay, you know what? As I look at that, that might not be the nose I want. And this is good. This is part of the lesson to really make you think like, hey, don't marry any decision you've made if you don't like it. If you don't like an idea, throw it in the garbage and come up with a new idea. There's nothing worse than wasting time trying to, well, this is a term we use in video production that I've done for many years, and it makes me laugh. It says polishing a turd. You don't want to polish a turd. If a drawing is bad, start a new drawing or use your eraser. That's what it's there for. Don't just keep trying to add shadow and detail or other things to your character to make it look better, because if the fundamental design is weak or bad, get rid of it. You know, start something new. Your brain has a million ideas, you know, tap into it. So I don't like this nose for this character. So I'm going to go into my layers. I'm just going to delete it. Rather than erase it, I'm going to delete it, okay? I'm going to say, well, what kind of nose does this guy have? Maybe I'm going to let me make sure I got it selected again. Maybe I like the kind of stubbier nose. This one might be a little better. So we're going to copy, and we're going to paste. We're going to move this over. We know we're going to flip it horizontal right away. And we're going to bring that in, okay? And I'm going to rotate this one a little more, okay? I think that looks a little bit more fun. You know? I like that a little bit more. And again, once we set that down, we can, you know what else I think I'm going to do? I think I might scale that down a little bit. I think he might look fun with a little bit more smaller nose. Another thing in Procreate, you can see that it's scaling it proportionately, which is called uniform. You'll see that again at the bottom of the screen. Unfortunately, it disappears when I go to draw to label it, but at the bottom of the screen, highlighted in blue, it says uniform. If you go to freeform, that lets you change it in different dimensions without it being uniform. You can adjust the height or the width independently of each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it even a little bit more stubby. I like that. And just a little bit. We're gonna then what I'm going to do, you can even do it by a ratio with dimensions if you want. Now I'm going to go back to uniform, and I'm just going to make it a little bigger, move it over so it's coming out of the center line of his head. And yeah, that's feeling better. But now again, the nose is laying over the eyes. So now I'm going to go into my eye layer. Going to grab my eraser. Going to make sure that eraser is not too big, because the eraser can very quickly mess things up. So I know my eye's selected, so I'm just going to go in here and make it pop a little bit. There we go. That's feeling better. All right, so we got our nose. All right, so we got our hat, our eyes, our nose. Let's come up with a mouth. Well, boy, this guy really looks like he could be expressive. I kind of like the goofy teeth over here. So let's make sure we have our layer selected. Grab our lasso. And I'm going to give a shot with this mouth right here. I also like this screwy one, this one over here, but I don't think I'm going to use that one. So we're just going to go with the kind of buck-toothed one, see how we like it. Again, if I don't like it, I'll just delete it and grab another one. So let's copy. Let's paste. Let's move this over. And obviously it's quite big. So this one I can tell right away too. I want to use freeform. I don't want it to scale at the same rate. So I'm going to pop that in. Maybe make it wider. Yeah, that's feeling a little better. Like you got to kind of get a sense for how it feels within the face. And you kind of want to think of, how it's going to roll. This head is a sphere, so it's not straight. You can't just grab these things, plop them on, and say, that's how it should be, right? It just doesn't work that way. So now we have that. Now you can see if I zoom in that that nose and the mouth, the mouth is overlapping the nose. So what I want to do now, the nose is on top of it, but since it's transparent, it's still shining through. So what I need to do now is just erase that little bit here. Just a little bit to let that nose pop over. It's subtle, but you'll find that just these little changes really give more dimension to a 2D illustration. Now look at that guy. I think he's looking cute already, and he's got some personality. He's a lot of fun. We got our hat, we got our nose, our eyes, our mouth. Let's look at some buttons. So he's a jester. He's kind of got, the jingle bells and everything. So I don't think that really lends itself to the rock or the coal so much as one of the buttons. So I'm going to go down here, grab a button. I like this one here. We'll move this over. And what we're going to do is we're going to shrink that down. Now, I just had freeform selected, so I'm going to go back to uniform because I do want these to be scaled because they're circles. All right, so we got one here. What I may do again to give dimension, I may tuck this one just a little bit under the scarf, right? So that eventually it's going to look like it's peeking out. I also want to try to make sure I have enough room to put a couple buttons down this middle section of his body. So there's one. I'm a big fan, and it's kind of a design process, to never use numbers like 2, 4, 6, 8. You always want to use odd numbers like 1, 3, 5, 7. It's just good for design. So what I'm going to do, I have that button there. Oh, I just broke a rule. Let's double tap with our fingers and move that back. A 2-finger tap on the iPad will undo. What I realized is I didn't copy and paste, and I don't want to get rid of that button over there. So I'm going to drag the fingers, we're going to copy, we're going to paste it, we're going to quickly move it back over, we're going to scale it down uniformly, tuck it underneath that scarf a little bit, maybe even just a little bit smaller. And now what I'm going to do is drag and duplicate, drag and duplicate. Now, when I go back to my selection, I have more buttons. And what am I finding out here? I am finding out very quickly that that's still too big for the 3 of them to fit properly. So now what I'll do is I'm going to align the 3 of them. I'm going to go back to my layers. I'm going to drag to the left with one of them selected, and now all 3 are highlighted. Now when I click my selection, all 3 will be highlighted. Now I can scale them all down together to make sure they all fit in that torso nicely. Then I'm going to take them and I'm going to tap it and merge down, and now all 3 of them are on one layer, and I can go in with my eraser now, and I'm just going to erase the very top of that one button. So let's get rid of that. And it's always good to zoom in when you're drawing to really kind of clean it up. So I think we got something going here now. You can see that our snowman has the 3 buttons, got a little depth by it tucking beneath the sweater. We got a fun little expression. And the only thing we have left really are the arms. I created a couple different types of twiggy branches that will work as arms. For this guy, let's see. I don't want anything too hard or sharp looking because, again, we got these round jingle bells. We have the round features of the eyes and the buttons. I think something a little bit smooth around the edges would make a lot more sense. So what I'm going to do is go over here, and we will pick this one, which is a little bit more rounded. We'll bring this over. And for this one, I'm leaving it uniform for now. We're going to scale it in. We're going to rotate, bring it over, and then find the size that we like. All right. Going to place it there since we know it's going to be erased a little bit. Then what I'm going to do is, and again, I know I didn't copy and paste over, but I'm just going to move forward at this point because we're almost done with the guy, but I should have copied that arm so I didn't ruin it. But what I'm going to do here is select it again. What I'll actually do is, since I have it selected here, I'll just copy and paste it. And then I'm just going to move this one back over so that I have a copy before I get too far. okay? And what I'll do is I'll take that and merge it back down. Let's see, which one was that? Yep. We'll merge that back down so it's still in with all of our buttons. Okay, then what we'll do is take this one and we will paste that one. And now we see I have that here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that. So now I have two. I'll use my selection. And for this one, I'm actually going to rotate it. I'm going to put it up here like it's his arm, okay? We're going to rotate that like he's waving, like he's a friendly snowman. And this one I might end up scaling up a little bit. I might even go freeform to make it a little more narrow. Sometimes the freeform will just alter your features just enough to give it break the symmetry just a little bit. Again, you don't want things to look too identical. So there's our waving snowman. I'm going to bring that up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we now have our first character built. What I'm going to do it real quickly is go back in to the body, our initial layer here, and I'm just going to erase a few of these little lines that you would not normally see based on, again, trying to create a little bit more depth and dimension. Now, one of the things you'll quickly notice is as you look at this snowman, if you look at it with a little sharp eye, when you take some of the elements that are over here and they're small and you scale them up, they tend to get a little softer around the edges here, right? Compared to the thin, crisp line that you have here. Now that's all right, because we're just doing concepting right now anyway. So it's quite all right. This isn't going to be your finished piece. Now, if you're a kid and you're going to do coloring on it, it's not really that big of a deal anyway. But as an artist who's working on a character for your story, that may not be what you'd want. So what I would recommend at that point is looking at the layers that you've done, that you've created. Like these are all the layers here that we've used to create this particular snowman. Is I would take them, select all of these, and then what you do is you group them. You take that group and you flatten it. Now, when I turn that on and off, those are all the elements we added. But since I made a copy of my snowman body, I'm also going to merge these two. So we have our whole snowman now should be on one layer. What I'll do now is go to rename, and I'm going to label it Snowman Concept, and we're just going to say 01. Okay, so now we have our Snowman Concept 1. What I would do, as part of my own general practices normally, I would then create a new layer above that one. I would take this layer and then I would drop the opacity down real thin. And then what I would normally do is, grab a dark pencil and I would go over it and I would just start tracing that on the layer above. I was just making sure that I had the right pencil tip there. And then I would just start going in and say, okay, now I know I'm going to have this uniform thickness, to my character. Now, one of the things I will say is when you're drawing, always rotate the paper. Now, on an iPad, you can see I can just spin it. You always want to work with the angle that works best with your wrist. When I took a class with Don Bluth, that was one of the things he said is everybody has like one really good movement when they're drawing with their wrist, and you want to get the paper to work with it. That's why if you look at like the old animators' tables, they had like a spinning circle on top that their paper set on so that they could rotate the paper around to get the best angle on their wrist. It just helps you get a much smoother and crisp line. So again, for this character, once I had this done, I would go back and I would just fully trace him. So that is character concept 1. Now, obviously, I could go through and make a bunch more. I could take this snowman template, I could duplicate it, I can flatten it, and then we can start over. We can say, let's do one more real quick, just to show that we have variety. For this one, instead of since I have a copy of this file for this one to do real quick, I'm not going to duplicate every layer. I'm not going to make backups of them. I have a copy of this file, so I just want to show you one that would be fun, just to show you how quickly it can be done. So let's grab our buttons. Let's grab this hat. Let's move it over. Let's scale it up. Let's pop it on our head. Let's give it a nice little tilt just to... Now think of the shape. You know, you got to make sure this hat fits on him. Now that one, I would make it probably... I will probably want to move this higher on her head because when I have it that low, it almost feels like it's crushing her head. But I just also proved a good point. I moved her after I had selected it, but she's still part of that same layer now. So when I go to move the hat, it's going to move everything. We definitely don't want that. So real quickly, I'm just going to lasso, and instead of copy and paste, there's one function here that's called cut and paste. Boom. Cut and paste. Now she's on her own layer. And this is the beauty of doing videos for these programs, because you can actually, if I make a mistake or if I think of a process in real time that is working or isn't working, you can see it, and I have to adjust accordingly. That's why I love video. We got a hat, so now let's pick some eyes. Obviously, we have a more feminine hat, so let's go back to our buttons here. We're going to grab these eyes. I think they're kind of cute. We're going to just cut and paste those real quick so they're on their own layer. Bring those over. We'll scale them up. I kind of like the eyes kissing right underneath the top of the head. I may want to make that hat float up even a little bit more, though. You know, and that's the fun of this. We're gonna go and we're gonna go free form, and I'm gonna flatten that hat out a little bit, just so it feels like it's fitting on her head better without going too far down over her eyes, right? And you can even let those eyebrows, the fun thing about cartoons is you can let the eyebrows kind of hover in space over the character, and it's perfectly acceptable. All right, now I'll go back and I'll select my eyes. I might move those up just a little bit more, right? Playing with the same angle. We'll go next. We'll go back to our layer with our options. Now we're up to our nose. But you know what? For her, I think I'm going to go to the mouth first, because I know for sure that I want to use these big puffy lips, right? So I'm going to put those on her first. We're going to rotate it. And I might want to scale these down a little bit and flatten them out. And again, think of those options. Think of all the options we have over here on the side. We have hats, eyes, nose, mouth, buttons, arms. We have 6 different elements, and within each one we have about 5 or 6 elements within those. So right there you have infinite combinations, but within those combinations you can start to scale them up, down, make them thinner, make them thicker. All of those decisions that you make will change your character. Every single thing will change your character. So we have this nice mouth right here. Right, we're gonna make sure it kind of follows the line of the face. You know, you kind of want to think of that too. We have this character here, but you want to remember that this is a sphere. Okay, this is not just a circle; it's a sphere. Right. So when you're drawing down that face, right, it's not a straight line. So I want to make sure that I'm going between the eyes, and you can see that I think those lips should be over just a hair more. Okay, so let's grab those lips. 1 second. Let's make sure we got the right layer. And again, we're just gonna grab them real quick, cut and paste them so they're on their own layer. Okay, and I'm just gonna scooch them a little bit over to the side. See, just a little bit, and maybe rotate them just a little bit more. Okay. Sometimes these menus pop up and it gets a little annoying, but I mean, they're good features, but sometimes it's so sensitive that you just end up tapping things a lot. But now it's a subtle difference, but you can see that it feels like it's really moving around the shape of the sphere more. It feels more three-dimensional on a two-dimensional page. And again, that's another thing Don Bluth mentioned to me in my class. He's like, when you're drawing in a paper, don't think of it as a flat piece of paper. Think of it as a two-dimensional image is a two-dimensional paper, and you're drawing into that space to try to create the illusion of 3D, okay? Always think of things as 3D. Don't think of it as a circle. Think of it as a sphere. Don't think of it as a square. Think of it as a cube. You're trying to create what's called volume and depth. And with 2D illustrations, when you're not using a lot of shadow, the only way to really achieve that is through like overlapping lines to create the illusion of depth. Okay, so now we have her eyes, her hat, her mouth. I think we need to grab a little nose. I think hers, some of these are kind of stubby or long. I'm going to go with one of the simple little traditional ones, which is this one right here. We'll select that one. We're going to cut and paste it so it's on its own layer. And we're going to bring that over. We're going to rotate it, bring it in. I think for hers, I'm liking that smaller, and I like nestling it right in between, again, kind of following that curve of that line that we had put in earlier, that we know where it resides now, so that we get a little depth. Maybe bring it up a little bit. You could tap to position it. Let's see how that's feeling. All right, that's looking pretty cute. All right, let's go for her buttons. I think for her buttons, we can go with, again, one of the more traditional ones, and maybe not rock or cool, because she has kind of a designer hat up there. So let's grab maybe this button right here. We're going to cut and paste it. We'll shift that over. We're going to scale it down. I like that size right there. We're going to duplicate it again. 1, 2. Make sure that it's kind of following the curvature of her torso there as well, right? Give it a little curve, a little bit of line like that, you know? You see, a little line like that. It's not just going straight down, all right? So I have those 3 buttons. I'm going to select them together. I'm going to scale them together so that they fit. Then I will go back in, and I'm just going to merge down. Okay? I'm going to take my eraser, erase the part that's going at the top. There we go. And while I'm at it, I may as well go back in up top, because we could have done this earlier, but we didn't. We're going to erase those few lines on the template at the top of the head too, because if you look at her now, she looks cute, but we wouldn't see these lines, right? Something feels off. Now, and they also competed with her eyebrows, so now she looks much more dimensional. All right? Looking kind of cute. All right, so we got our buttons, nose, eyes, mouth. Finishing touch is the arms. So I don't think she's a jagged one either. I'm thinking, but maybe a little bit of crisp line, because we got this nice crisp arc to the hat. So I'm thinking we'll grab these arms right here. We're going to cut and paste. We'll move those up. All right. And then what we will do is we will duplicate it. All right. What I'm going to do is flip it horizontal. Let's see, that should have been, oh, it still had both of them selected. So 2 fingers to undo. Make sure we only have 1 selected. Flip horizontal. Bring that one over here. Now, for fun, you could even like mess with it and say, okay, well, what happens if I flip it vertical and then rotate it, right? Now it doesn't look as symmetrical, which is nice. That's kind of what you want. It doesn't look like here you have, if you really look at it, you have the little pointer at the top here, and here you have it on the inside. It's subtle, but it helps break it from looking totally symmetrical. So then what I would do is take all these elements again. I'm going to select them like this, just dragging to the right. I'm going to put them into a group. I'm going to hit the group, and I'm just going to say flatten. So these are all on one layer. The body is still on one layer, but I can also see that, again, to create clean lines, I'm going to let that one where the arm is almost peeking behind the body a little, and this one as well. almost like they're stuck into the side, so you can't really tell. So now we have a nice, cute little female snowman as well. All right, now that's it for this lesson. I mean, I've only created 2, but you can see how many other styles you can quickly make and just have fun with it. And again, this is just a snowman. I mean, if you were doing a warrior barbarian, or you were doing a Halloween story with a little vampire, or any other type of character, whether it's a puppy or a cat, whatever the main character is of your children's picture book, think of what that character entails. Think of some of the different elements that really would define it. Maybe say as a dog. So if you had a dog, what kind of nose? What kind of breed? Was it really furry? What kind of colors? Is it wearing a dog collar or not? Does it have a leash? Does it wear a sweater? You know, you can just think of all kinds of funny little elements that will really give personality to your character. But again, don't marry the first idea. Like even here, I have this cute little woman snowman, snow woman. I'm sorry, I got to be correct here. A little snow woman, but I might say, okay, this is really great, and I really like what I got going here. Let's merge these down here to make my 2 concepts, right? And what I'm going to do real quickly is I'm going to turn off my buttons. I'm going to turn on my other snowman concept, bring him up to 100, and say, well, here we go. Look how quickly we just made 2 cute snow people. You know, we got totally different. And again, you could say, all right, well, what else could I consider for these characters? What else might be fun to add to them? And I might say, all right, well, for his, since he's kind of silly, I'm just going to put like little squigglies and patterns that don't really make sense, but add to a little of the chaos of his design, right? I mean, it doesn't really mean anything, and that was just really quick, but it just added a little bit more flair for this snowman. I might also say, well, you know what? One of the other things I realized is with his buttons, to follow that curve that I was talking about earlier, I'm seeing something after the fact that I think would look better is to move this button and shift it over just a little bit so it helps follow that curve of the scarf that's falling. Okay? Again, very subtle things, but they make a difference. They really do. For the female character, you can now look at her scarf and you can say, okay, well, he's got this nice, real squiggly, chaos going on. For hers, maybe I just want a few little flowers, right? Just a couple of them. And make it so that they're clipped. Don't make it where you can see all of them all the time. You want to hide things. Again, it gives the illusion that something is falling or wrapping around. That gives again more depth. All right? You just want to always be thinking about that. Always think about how you can create more volume and depth for your illustrations, okay? So she's got some nice little flowers on the end of it. We could also draw them up top if we wanted, but I don't want to get too long in this lesson. So there we go. We have 2 totally unique, totally original snow characters based on some original concepts that I created. Again, going back to the buttons, let's just look at it again. What did we start with? We started with a snowman template and these options that I had started with. Again, if say you were doing a Christmas story where an elf was meeting in a whole village of snow people, well, right here you could do a ton of combinations to come up with your own unique village of snow people. You have all the tools at your disposal, and all of it is happening based on designs that you had come up with. Everything is original. That doesn't mean don't look at other reference art. You absolutely want to look at other artwork and styles that are out there to try to fuel your creativity. But once you put it on paper and start making combinations, you own it. It becomes your own. So all I can say is have a lot of fun. Take the time to explore different designs, explore different options. And once you have these characters designed, boy, the next step is color. You can create infinite variations of each of these characters based on the color or style, whether you're using blue colors to make them seem a little dreary, whether you're using pinks and reds to generate life, whether there's greens and grays to make them look a little sickly. I mean, but color is going to be another lesson we're going to cover in the future. But for right now, I just really hope that you enjoyed this lesson focusing on our snow people. And I'm going to jump back to the camera now. Okay, well, that's it for our first episode. I hope you learned something. I know I had fun, so again, I hope you did too. If you really enjoyed that character design or the illustrations in the book, I do recommend that you go to the website and watch some of our other drawing lessons that are there. We have some video courses that are free that were instructed by my friend Jeffrey Varab, the artist from the book. We also have some free downloadable coloring book pages that you can share with the kids. And if you're looking for any last-minute Christmas gifts, of course I encourage you to pick up Zach's Quest, whether it be for a young reader, where you would get the picture book, or for somebody who wants a little bit of meat in their story, get the chapter book. It's fun for teenagers, as young adults, teenagers, as well as adults. I do look forward to seeing you in our next episode, so we'll have one of those coming out in the next few weeks. In the meantime, I hope you have a happy holiday and look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.